Hello everyone, and welcome back to the last but certainly not least session of today. Just want to thank everyone who's tuned in or attended in person for what has been a fantastic day of debate. Our final panel is called Travel Without Trace. How can we travel in a zero carbon way? So to talk through this crucial debate, I'm pleased to introduce our final panel of the day. Lisa Rose, Head of Sustainability at the Water Network. Ellis Barrett, presenter of Electroheads. Marianne Bailey from Vox's Solar Taxi, and chairing today's panel, Ella Robertson-Mackay from One Young World. Thanks very much.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me? Someone give me a thumbs up if that's the right level of volume. Great. My name's Ella. I'm from One Young World. We've been thrilled to be the content partner for this fantastic venue thus far at COP. And this panel was originally called Travel Without a Trace, but I really think what it should be called is Embracing Change. Because really, when talking to these amazing ladies, the changes that are coming to the way that we travel and transport ourselves are really beyond what we can imagine today. The last time the world met at a significant COP, Teslas were basically still catching fire. Change has come very quickly, but it's going to accelerate at an even faster pace. So what we want to talk about today is some of the innovations that are happening, the innovations that you're going to be seeing over the next 5 years or so, and how we can really make everybody excited about this change. Because we all imagine, I grew up, I want this kind of car, or this is the kind of car I feel safe in. This is how I want to travel, and we're going to have to open and expand our minds. So I've got some fantastic guests here with me this evening to really help us imagine what the future of transport's going to be from a greener and more innovative and more exciting place. So I'm going to have them introduce themselves. Lisa, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Is my microphone working? Yes,
it is. I think we probably need a bit of extra projection just to help people at the back.
Hi, I work at Water, which is a new streaming for impact platform brought to you by the makers of the Oscar-winning documentary My Octopus Teacher. Water is available online. It has an array of amazing short and long-form films. You can log in for free. You can download it on your phone. It's awesome, so check it out.
Awesome. Ailish.
Hi everyone, my name's Ailish and I'm a content creator and presenter for a multimedia channel called Electrohead. So basically we love all things electric vehicles, whether that's electric skateboards, one wheels, scooters, bikes, cars, boats, you name it, we love it. So not only do we do reviews on cool products that are coming out, we also like to cover the social impact that electric vehicles have as well. I've got a bit of a background in documentary filmmaking, so when I came onto the team, I thought, why don't we do things a little bit differently and actually speak to the people who are impacted by electric vehicles, whether that's positive or even negative sometimes, which I can go into a little bit more later. So it's basically just raising awareness. We want to be the unignorable voice for e-mobility, and we really think that there is a revolution happening with electric vehicles. It's one of the biggest social and technological movements that we've seen since, I think, the iPhone. It's huge. It's just like coming as a huge wave sweeping across, and we kind of have to get on board because, this is why we're here.
Absolutely. We definitely have to get on board, and I feel like there's a transport pun in there somewhere. And Marianne, do you want to introduce yourself to our audience?
Hello, I'm Marianne Bailey. Is that loud enough?
Probably,
Yes.
Yeah. I think if we could ask our guests at the bar, I'm very glad that everyone's having fun, but we could probably do with a little bit less chatter up top, please.
So, I'm Marianne Bailey. I'm an inventor. I'm a design engineer and chief design engineer of Theovox Solar Taxi. We have a picture of it up here. I am also the first female founder, I believe, of an automotive OEM.
Woo!
Possibly ever. We'll see. So Theovox Solar Taxi, it's a revolutionary vehicle. It's a game changer. We've just unveiled it at Cenex. It has had a lot of interest because it solves a really big problem. So it's powered by 100% renewable energy. So this vehicle can replace or displace all-day service vehicles. So it has a range of between 100 and 150 mile range. It has only a 8 kilogram battery, and that 8 kilogram battery is removable. So it's just briefcase sized, about this big. You take it out and you just can charge it from any power socket as you do your laptop or your mobile phone. Now, to give you an idea of scale, this vehicle weighs 75 kilograms. Okay, so most guys, to give you an idea, a 95th percentile male is about 96 kilograms. So this is 75. So this gives you an idea of, this is how you make solar power viable for transport. If it was on a normal car, you put a solar panel on top, it only gives you 9 miles range. Whereas on a Theovox solar taxi, you can get anything from 0 at night to 80 miles in Saudi Arabia, for instance. But on average in this country, you'll get 40 to 50 mile range on the solar roof, and you get 100 miles on the removable battery. Now, that removable battery, what we can do, because our business plan is that our drivers buy or lease these vehicles, they're contracted to us, and they're contracted to sign up for their home domestic supply to change over to 100% renewable energy. And we can do that just from a business plan. They're not putting solar roof panels on their roofs, it's just a phone call. That's all it is with a company like OVO or Octopus or that type of company.
Fantastic, and there's so much more we can talk about this evening. I think for people who don't think about electric vehicles all day long, Eilish, I wonder if you can help us imagine, as far as Electroheads are concerned, and we think 10 years' time and then 20 years' time, and then potentially further into the future, what should people imagine when they imagine a city like Glasgow? Let's start with the urban environment. How will it change in the future? What can we expect to see?
Well, I think what we can expect to see is, fingers crossed, we need to retrofit our cities to actually encourage more micromobility. So I'm talking about bikes, I'm talking about scooters. We need to.
I'm just interested, out of our audience, maybe show by round of applause, by which I mean when I say you clap. By way of applause, who's a cyclist, a scooterist, who doesn't use a car or public transport to get to work? Great. I'm very bad at riding a bike, so I applaud you all. Carry on, Eilish.
Yeah, so this is the thing. I think people are afraid to go on the roads, I mean, especially in a place like London, where I'm from, because, let's be honest, the roads are pretty mental. So what we need to do is we need to create better infrastructure for cyclists, for scooters, all that micromobility. I think we need to actually bring cars. I mean, we've got like a ULEZ zone that we've implemented, which is kind of spanned out much further in London and obviously in many other cities as well. So I think in terms of what we'll see in the future is, I think electric cars, in 5 years, hopefully they'll become more affordable. We're seeing more affordability as we come through. I mean, right now you can get, say, a Fiat 500e for 21,000, which is still a lot of money for a new car, isn't it? Which only goes about 100 miles. I think there needs to be, with electric cars, they need to become more affordable, but they need to be on the sort of the outer circuits of the city. Because I've been reading a book actually called Happy City, which is amazing. I would recommend everyone reads it if they're into finding out a little bit more about how we could live a better life in the city. And it's all about taking the cars out. We've built our cities around cars and automobiles, and actually it's just really made us very unwell. All the pollution in the air. Parks are next to busy roads. We have to rely on buses and cars to get from A to B because everything is so far away. We haven't got that 15-minute infrastructure where everything is available in a 15-minute cycle or walk. So, yeah, in terms of the future, we just need to really rethink what is important, and I think we need to change our mindset. We need to get out of that mindset that we need to rely on cars unless you really are doing a long journey. And
that's a huge challenge. I mean, I probably am guilty of being a bit of a serial Uber user. Anyone here from Uber, consider having a valued customer program, air miles for Uber, I'd be in favour. But you're right, we should be thinking of this differently. I mean, Lisa, from a reimagining and a storytelling capability, how can we get people to start thinking differently about their journeys? How can we get them to start thinking, oh, maybe I won't take a car, maybe I can use a different form of transport? How can we change behaviour?
Yeah, really good question. I think one of the things that we're trying to do at WaterBear is to really see how we can best shift hearts and minds on this issue, and not only change individual behaviour, but empower people to really call on their governments, call on their leaders and their, local city mayors to really help change the system. Because, as much as we can try to change our individual behaviour, if the infrastructure isn't there, then it's really quite difficult. So, a third of Europe's busiest flights can actually be done in under 6 hours by train. But the train is so expensive often compared to the plane. I mean, how many times have you looked up the Eurostar and then compared it to like EasyJet, And so you can't blame people for choosing the cheaper options. So I think governments really have to help out and start subsidising public transport a lot more and creating the cycle lanes so that we can actually make better choices. And then once that's there, it's about pushing people towards making those better choices. So as you were saying about the storytelling aspect, I think anyone who works in TV or in film could really start to consider how they can help push people towards making better decisions. So it's pointing out the problem, such as air pollution, as you were talking about earlier. So it's so invisible, we can't see it. And one of the films we have on WaterBear at the moment is called Europe's Biggest Lie. Actually, there's 2 short films. And one is about the level of air pollution in the UK caused by traffic. And it's actually causing people to die. And it's even killed young children, and now that's being proved for the first time that that's the cause of it. So there's a short film on WaterBear right now about that you can watch. And so what we're trying to do is not only highlight the problem, but also the solutions, and really push people towards those solutions and drive people to take action.
I think that's here we go. I think that's such a great point. I think affordability is only going to become more and more important. Marion, there's so many questions I want to ask you about your amazing invention and inventing it, because I think so many people would, who didn't want to be an inventor when they were growing up, and it's so fantastic to meet you. But you've invented a very lightweight vehicle, and I know that a lot of people are nervous about lightweight vehicles. I know that mums want to put their kids in a big bulky SUV because it feels you're going to keep your baby safe. In terms of telling people about lightweight vehicles, making them excited about it, why do you think lightweight vehicles are the future of our urban mobility?
It's because they have to be. We have no choice. At the moment, even we have to replace the combustion engine with EVs. We have to. But the unfortunate truth about EVs, they have batteries at the moment to get the range we're used to of 385 kilograms to 700 kilograms just for the battery. And with every battery that you add, you make the next battery less efficient. So the heavier the vehicle, the less efficient it is. We have to make all vehicles lighter. There is not enough rare earth on the planet to make the EVs, to even for our nation. We have to change, and we have to make all our vehicles lighter, all of them. And there needs to be a regulatory class of vehicles that just for lightweight vehicles, and ideally that lightweight where you can remove the batteries and you're not putting pressure on the infrastructure. We have to spend, the statistics are, a government report found they have to spend £45.5 billion installing the infrastructure for electric cars. We need to be installing 2,000 a day for the next 30 years in this country to meet the targets.
Sorry, in terms of what's being installed, for people who don't think about this all day, really let's paint the picture so that people know what they, if you're writing to MP or you're speaking to your mayor, you know what you're asking for.
Yeah, so usually you have to plug in your vehicle is heavy. You can't take out the battery and plug it in like your laptop to your home. So we have to build infrastructure for these EV vehicles. And we're not even making 2,000 new electric power points a year, let alone a day. We just can't do it. So we're making all these ambitious things to get people to buy EVs, but there isn't the infrastructure. The only way we're going to meet the targets is by making all vehicles lighter weight and making the batteries removable for all vehicles, not just mine.
That's so fascinating. I mean, I don't know if anyone, to show by way of applause, who has an electric car or electric vehicle here? Anybody? Clap if you've got an electric car. Oh, yeah, I mean, and those of you who do, you will know how hard it is to charge your electric car in London. And I mean, the area that I live in, yeah, there are electric charging points, but I mean, they so often don't work. There's so many problems with them. And you're quite right, like the current system isn't accelerating anywhere near fast enough.
Can I just say, what's important though is that you should go out and buy EVs. I'm not trying to put you off here. You have to go out and buy an EV. Combustion engine cars are the worst out of any technology, and they don't belong in this time. They're an anachronism. We really must wean ourselves off fossil fuels, but it's problematic at the moment. There's just not enough resources to make the EV cars we need.
Eilish, so I hear from people when we talk about electric cars, but I'm a petrol head, but I have a house in the Highlands and I need range, but I like to go really fast. I mean, some of these concerns are being addressed. So if you are Mr. or Mrs. Petrolhead or Mux Petrolhead, because we're at COP and we're being woke, what is the story that you're telling them about why electric cars are for them?
Yeah, great question. So anybody, I'm sure there are some people here who are definitely on the fence about switching to an electric car, maybe just don't know enough. That's completely understandable. A really big thing about buying an electric car is, for a lot of people, is range anxiety, and I can tell you right now, it doesn't have to be a thing, genuinely. So the average car journey is about 8 miles in the UK. You really don't need a car that goes for 330 miles at a time. I bet you none of you could actually drive 330 miles without making a stop, right? Anyone? Maybe? Yeah, okay, maybe someone.
You need to stop for petrol,
yeah.
right?
Well, we'll stop. I mean, like, I don't think I could probably hold my bladder for that long, like, realistically, for a few hours. So, I mean, you know, there are ways. And also, a really big thing that we talk about is, with owning an EV, is having a home charger. So, I think 2/3 of the country have off-road parking, which is amazing. Like, 2/3 of the country can have a car on their driveway that can have a home charger. You just plug it in overnight, it's charged, and you're good to go. And you're probably doing 8 miles in a day anyway. So then you can use that car for a week without having to charge it. Now, the issue comes in when obviously you have, say you live in London and you have an electric car and you need to find somewhere to park it and plug it. Well, yeah, understandable. And yes, infrastructure does need to grow. I mean, we've got over, I think it's 45,000 chargers across the UK now. You know, it is growing. There is the infrastructure there, and it is getting better day in, day out. And I'm sure, you know, the EV owners have, experienced the faulty charger. But I think the more people that adopt electric cars, the more public chargers will come as well. It's that cycle, you know, people need to buy, the government, you know, it will happen. So don't be afraid to buy electric if that is the thing that is worrying you, because it really isn't something that you need to really, really worry about.
And Lisa, I think you've worked in so many different sustainability roles at such inspiring companies. For people who are thinking, gosh, I really want to have a more sustainable lifestyle, but I don't know where to start, what's your advice to them in terms of, yes, okay, buy an electric car, that should absolutely be on your to-do list. So what are the other kind of things for people going, gosh, I've come to COP, I'm super inspired, I want to embrace this whole lifestyle?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I think one of the best places you can go to get guidance on the most critical steps that we can take in our lives that will have the biggest difference is the Count Us In website. So they're also, you may have heard of them, they're affiliated with the TED Countdown that was happening in Edinburgh just before the COP.
For everyone listening, that's Count Us In. So as well as Happy City, that's on the reading list, and your website to go to is Count Us In.
Yeah. So if you just look up Count Us In, you'll find it. And they have, I believe, 16 steps that you can take. We've also partnered up with them on WaterBear. So if you actually type in WaterBear and Count Us In, you can join the WaterBear team. And then you can commit to whatever steps you like, and you can find out exactly what you can do. So for example, one of them is fly less. And then it will tell you like all the different ways that you can consider traveling. There's one that's about how do you talk to your politicians. I remember there was a panel earlier here where someone someone was saying, I'm being told all the time to write to my politicians, to take action and approach my leaders, but I don't really know how to do that. On Count Us In, there's a whole page where it really guides you through how can you raise issues with your MP and your government leaders. So it's a really great website to check out.
That's just such fantastic advice. That's a really, really clear recommendation that everyone can do tonight or when you get home. One of the things that I'm really passionate about in the climate crisis is I really believe that business has got to be at the heart of this, because technology is where the solutions lie. Government, MPs, they don't have the technology. I'm very proud to work for a charity, civil society. We don't have the technology. Where the technology lies is in business. And I am worried about the anti-business tone at the moment, because it's not that businesses shouldn't be held to account, but if we don't work with them, we're not getting to net zero. And Marianne, you've taken this on yourself to be obviously a very eco-forward-looking business. For people going, gosh, business doesn't have a role to play, I'm not a pro-business person, what would you say to them, and why would you say that business was the way that you decided to approach solving the climate crisis?
Well, where do I start? This is a big one. There's so much you can do as a business. One of the big things about COP26 is that it's great that people are talking about what we have done, which is decarbonise our grid, which is fabulous, and we're hearing from the media that they're reducing, our emissions are now 1% of world total emissions. But what they're leaving out is that we are the biggest net importers of CO2, because we are buying so much stuff abroad and shipping it in. We are the biggest. Our little island is the most per capita in the world. And there's only 2 other countries who import more in total than us, which is the US and Japan, another island nation. So as a company, what I've done from the beginning is it means I can control the supply chain. So Theovox is 98% UK manufactured. And I've been working with UK manufacturers from the beginning of the project to see where their innovation is, to see where their strengths are. And I've designed the vehicle around our capabilities to make this vehicle economically viable to manufacture here from the beginning. More companies need to do that, and the power isn't just in business. The power is not politicians. The power is you as consumers. The market is all powerful. So I've been talking for years. I started this project in 2011. I put it on hold for a number of years, but way back in 2011, I came up with this and designed this. Back then, people thought I was crazy. You can't do that. It's solar, no. It was only when Bertrand Piccard went around the world in a solar plane that people started to take notice, going, oh, yes, okay.
Guys, let's just give it up for Marianne. 10 years of working on a project, and here she is, launching bringing it to the world at COP. It's so inspiring.
Thank you. But my point is, I really want you to understand the power is with you. So I've been having for a very long time, over 10 years now, industry saying to me that the market doesn't want EVs. So I come to panels like this and I quiz them. So why aren't you doing more to industry? They say the customer doesn't want it. So what we need now, so we've just unveiled Theovox. I need an army of the public out there supporting us. So,
okay, I know you need to follow us on Instagram. Yeah. What is your Instagram called? Everyone, okay,
ready?
Out. Let's get ready. Here we go.
So it's vo.voxy.
V-O-X-Y.
V-O-V-O-X-I. X-I.
Okay, right. Theovox. There's a couple hundred more followers here, please. Thank you very much.
We've only got 45 because I've only just set it up. But we need, and go to our website, theovoxy.com. We need emails from you saying, we would use this, we want this. Because we've got people we've got to convince people in government, the regulatory bodies, the other manufacturers, other businesses, investors, that the public want this. Because the industry thinks that you don't want this. and you don't, well, not this one, but they say you don't want EV vehicles. So we need to hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely. So please be in touch with Marianne. Please follow them. Please support. I mean, Lisa, previously you worked at Patagonia, which is a company that's really shown the power of this. Oh, wearing Patagonia now. I mean, Patagonia really shows the power of the sustainable supply chain. So for other entrepreneurs thinking about, and other business owners here who maybe go, gosh, I want my business to be more eco-friendly. How can we pull those supply chain levers to make a more sustainable world?
Yeah. I guess I have, how can you pull the supply chain levers to make a more sustainable world? I think, just as you were saying, demand side, right?
Demand.
If we're not making the choices ourselves, how can we expect the producers to do what we want them to do, right? But it does also come in at the top. So you also need government to legislate for companies to behave themselves. And that can also drive change, and then it can actually help with the prices, because at the moment electric vehicles are still quite expensive for consumers. So it's really, it kind of comes like, the change comes like this, from the top and from the bottom up, and like meets in the middle. And so you need it from both ends. You need government supporting industry to make everything more affordable, and you need consumers who are actually saying, when it's affordable, I will buy it, right? It's one of the things that I was working on at Patagonia wasn't actually supply chain stuff. It was salmon farming, surprisingly enough. And one of the problems with eating salmon is that most of it is grown in these open net farms. Now, I know we're kind of veering away from transport, but it's kind of a similar sort of system into how markets work. Because it's so easy and cheap to have salmon in these massive open cages in the ocean, that's how most of it works. And it's not illegal, and yet it's very polluting. There are parasites that just take over the salmon, and it's really cruel to keep them in these conditions. But nobody's really doing anything about it because there's no legislation and consumers don't really know much about it. So I've forgotten where I was going with this point, but it was to do with supply chains. Oh, this is the thing.
Both ends.
The alternative to open cage salmon farming, if you still want to eat salmon, of course, you can just stop eating it. That would be one
we
thing.
are in Scotland, so
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want to offend everyone who loves salmon up here.
Yeah, but the alternative is land-based salmon farming in these closed systems, which can be done, and it is growing, like the industry is kind of moving towards that, but at the moment it's still less profitable, right, to do land-based farming. However, IKEA just shifted and made a big commitment to using salmon that is only grown in this land-based system, and they saw this shift in the markets because people were asking about it. They were saying, have you got this? If you have it, I'll buy it. So I think also you can make inquiries, you can go to your local producers and shops and whatnot, and you can say, when you have this stuff, I'll be ready to buy it.
That's such a good point, and I think that a lot of people
finally got there.
If you said to most people who is having an influence on sustainable fishing, they wouldn't say IKEA. But it just shows that if you have some influence, even if it's not loads of influence, if you pull that lever, the chain reaction you get from using your influence will cause more and more dominoes to fall. And I think that just shows wherever your influence lies, use your influence to make better choices. I mean, I think, like, obviously we've discussed a lot here, but Eilish, in terms of the role that you're playing at the moment in making people excited about e-mobility, micro-mobility, what are the trends that you're seeing emerge? What are the things that your audience is getting excited about, and what are you excited about that we might not know about sitting here today?
Well, I mean, I'm sure quite a few of you have seen the electric scooter craze that has just kicked off. I mean,
Sorry, before we go into this, do electric scooters belong on pavements?
Absolutely not.
Yes.
Absolutely not.
That
is
I was
something
worried I was being curmudgeonly.
No, that's something that we completely vouch for. Like, they shouldn't be on the pavements. It should be on the roads. They should be treated like a bicycle. They are very similar to bikes in terms of, capacity. So yeah, big thing we've seen, electric scooters. They are, in my eyes, they are a perfect swap-in for a car. A lot of people like to travel single occupancy in a car. Again, I was saying 8 miles a day is kind of the average journey that people will do. You can do that on an electric scooter. You can do it on a bike, but some people don't want to have that active travel, hence why people go in a car and don't choose to cycle. So an electric scooter is the perfect swap-in. Now I know sometimes if it's raining, it might not be so great, but just put a raincoat on. I mean, the Swedes, they all do it so well. You know, they just go out in all the weather. Like I've been doing it like with my bike itself. Unfortunately, electric scooters are currently illegal to ride in public at the moment, unless it is a rental scooter. Now I know this does divide a lot of opinion. It's very Marmite. Some people are really for electric scooters, some are really against. I know that the people who are for them really do see the capacity that they have in terms of really mobilising in like cities and travel. Now I know that people that are against electric scooters, I completely understand. You know, you see bad behaviour. You see people riding on the pavements. You see people riding two on one scooter, which is so dangerous. You can't. And I think a really big thing here is we need way more education. You know, imagine at school in year 6, year 6, maybe year 7 or something. You know, when you used to be able to do like a little cycle course. Why can't we?
Proficiency test.
Yeah. Why can't we do that with scooters? You know, because it just means that kids can get around, learn how to do it as long as there is safe cycle infrastructure. There's a lot of things that are in play here, but I do genuinely believe electric scooters are the way forward to swap in for for cars. Sorry. Electric cars are also great.
In Scotland, we would say there's no such thing as bad weather, only a bad choice of clothing. So I feel like next time you're looking at the rain, you're going, oh, I'm not sure about that.
But imagine if everybody got out of their car and got on some form of micromobility. How amazing the roads would be in comparison. We just need to change our minds. Like the mindset just needs to switch. And then there are amazing inventions like yours that, you know, can ferry people that further distance who don't want to do the active travel or can't get on the scooter, that needs that sort of enclosed.
Carrying cargo.
Exactly. Like we just have to rethink what we're currently doing because it's not working right now.
Yeah.
It's a really good example, scooters, e-scooters, of the market voting with their feet. A bit of a pardon the pun. But they are illegal. Yet the public have said, no, this is a good idea. It's a good environmental idea. So because they are adopting them, purchasing them, taking control of the market, then, you know, I'm talking to top people who sort of legislators who are now looking at the regulations of them and making the speed limit in line with an e-bike. There, you know, you may have to wear a helmet in the future, but they're going to regulate them. So they're coming round, and that's what we need. So we need the market to say yes, and then they come around, the regulators.
I mean, it is amazing how much it's changing. We've had to give up a staff room in our office, and we're a charity. We're not a very big building because so many people are coming on bikes and e-bikes compared to before, and we've actually had to give up space in the building to provide for it. Not great for the visitors. I don't think anyone's impressed, but we know we're being eco-friendly. I look at my staff just laughing with their head in their hands. Right, Marianne, I'm so excited to talk to you about what it's like to be an inventor and to have something. We've all done a little doodle, we've all come up with an idea and sort of gone, oh, wouldn't it be cool if this happened? But you must have taken this from sort of a napkin to a page to something that people can actually sit in and drive around in. For people who've, you know, maybe imagined doing that but not met an inventor before, tell them a bit about what that's like.
Oh, wow. What specifically do you want to know?
Well, why don't you take us back to kind of when you originally had this idea 10 years ago?
Well, the thing is that I didn't tackle this problem from a typical automotive point of view. So I'm a designer that is kind of cross-platform. I do automotive design, I do product design, I've done musical instrument design, I've done graphic user interface design, graphic design, all sorts, even packaging. So I have I apply the same creative process to any project. I do look at problems a bit differently. I have an advantage being a woman in this field because there's not many of us, and I looked at the problem in a very female way, I think. I started off with the problem of, it's about asking good questions. That's how I start the design process, asking lots of good questions. And the good question was, for this project, how do I transport 2 people and a lot of shopping across town for the least economic and environmental cost? And that was the solution. So depending on what your question is, will determine the answer. And I think it's all about forming the good questions.
And so at the point where you've sort of got your design,
Yeah.
because I think lots of people, I remember as a kid, I hated handwriting. We used to have to do that back then. People under the age of a certain age used to actually have to write things by hand. And I was like, there should be a handwriting machine. That was, so everyone's had this idea of like a sketch of something. But how do you go from that into reality? Talk us through a bit through that process, because it's so interesting.
Oh gosh, so asking good questions, then it's brief writing. So writing your own brief. I worked for Yamaha for 5 years. That was brilliant because they give you so much freedom and massive budgets, really big budgets to do very interesting projects. One of my projects was the most beautiful guitar in the world. Go. That was it. That was the brief.
Wow.
And then from that, I wrote my own brief. So you see, it's about brief writing, asking good questions, sketching. Can't get.
But in terms of make it real, because we all know about Theranos and Elizabeth Holmes, so she was this fantastic inventor who came up with this idea of, but it didn't work, right? Like, so it's all very well, you can all come up with amazing ideas or handwriting machines or whatever, but they have to work. How did you make sure you made it work?
Okay, so there's a lot of sketches that go on. You then do get things into 2D generally. First is my process. I still do it the old-fashioned way of elevation drawings and also 3D sketches. I then take it into 3D CAD. You get reality into it, the size and proportion of things. For instance, if you're making an automotive company, you've got to engage manufacturing partners at that stage, get them in early. That's my particular process. It's not the industry's though. Working with their innovations, incorporating it into the design development, making models, 3D maquettes, 3D modeling, analysing the surfaces, FEA, which is, analysing if it's something
When did you first
right.
get to driving at?
Oh, wow. By the way, if anyone wants to see it working, I do have a movie of it on my computer, which you can see and if you sign an NDA. But you'll be able to see the Theovox working very soon. We'll do a big unveiling and demonstrate it at the Olympic Park in London. What's the question again?
When did you first get to driving at?
That was when first of all, we made the working prototype. So what you're seeing there is production intent prototype. It's the next level prototype. So usually a first prototype is a skeleton structure. It had no body moldings on. It was just all the drivetrain, the electronics, basic first electronics. And then you flesh it out. We did this stage was the body moldings and working on, windscreens and other stuff.
And Lisa,
And about a year ago.
a year ago. So a year ago from today, you were first driving around it, and now you're here getting people excited about it. That's so amazing. So Lisa, from a creative storytelling perspective, and I know that you guys are building an amazing community around your streaming platform, what would your advice be to Marianne in terms of getting people excited, building a community, creatively telling her story? How can we help Marianne bring this amazing technology to the market?
I think it's all about what someone I know who works with us usually says, selling the sleep and not the bed. So it's about really selling the experience of what it's like to drive an electric car and the benefits of it rather than the car itself. So it's the time that you have, it's the looks that you'll get, this kind of thing, and making it like really cool and fun. And so maybe you can go on an adventure with it and film that and put it all on social media and tell the whole story about, all the different types of people who use that vehicle and the journeys that they have, and just make it really fun and exciting rather than focusing necessarily on the car itself, if you see what I mean. Yeah.
I've heard a different version of that expression, focusing on something else that you do in bed rather than sleeping, but that's probably a more PG version. And then Eilish, you're also about getting people excited about electromobility. So workshopping this here, how can we all get excited about Theovox? What is your message to people about it? What more can we do to get other people pumped about Marianne's invention?
Well, I think everybody has kind of seen it. I think everyone's probably here today because they want to understand how we can find a solution to the current way that we travel at the moment, and this is a solution. I mean, everyone is surely really excited about this, right? I mean, a big thing here is
we've had the most craziest response. I've had a tsunami of emails that I cannot get through. So, I've got a micro company. It's just me, and I subcontract everyone else. And so, and they're all in manufacturing and design. I don't have anyone in charge of social media or making content, or I haven't got any of that yet.
Ailish
so,
is here to help though, anyway.
No, we will help you for sure. Because you said that it's technically a pedal vehicle.
The first one is,
The
yes.
first one.
Yeah.
Is there any pedaling involved?
Well, I've invented these new types of pedals, which are treadle pedals. They do this, so so you can sit with your feet. Well, I hope not. I hope not. So it's very sophisticated. So you can sit with your feet down like this. The pedals are out the way. You don't have to pedal, but our market is the 18 to 35-year-old Uber generation who are not buying cars. The younger generation, you've done brilliantly. You're not buying cars. You're using your market force and generally using public transport in big cities and then using Uber for last mile. Most people are not using Uber Pool, by the way. In London, it's something like 20%, whereas in LA, it's more. They prefer to share it. In America, we don't. We're kind of
We're not as friendly.
Yeah, so people in London, they want, or big cities, they want a faster, direct journey. And generally, they're doing work as well. So we're appealing to the younger generation. They're also the Peloton generation. They like to gamify their commute. So if they can sit and do a bit of work on their phone as they're travelling, but they can also gamify that commute, link it to their Fitbit or their other wearable devices, and they can improve their fitness on the way to work as well, while doing work and not having to pay attention to the road or anything else. So it's helping people stay fit. It gets over that thing of people driving to the gym, which is crazy. It gets over a lot of problems, and also that people can spend more time with their friends and family if they are doing that. They're being very efficient with their time and their energy.
I think a big thing as well, you talk about, our generation wanting to sort of not actually have to concentrate on what they're doing. I mean, autonomous vehicles are really, really coming into play now, aren't they? I mean, we've seen what Tesla have been doing. They are really leading the forefront in what is going to be possible. What these computers can do already is genuinely mind-blowing. It's actually quite scary. But I think, genuinely, talking about sort of future transportation, imagine if all the cars on our roads were actually autonomous. The amount of incidents and accidents would be far less. Computers are actually much better at judging than humans. We have a lot more factors at play. Sometimes we're tired, sometimes we're overworked, sometimes we get distracted because maybe someone calls us or texts us and we try and pick up the phone, which you obviously shouldn't do. Imagine if every car, every lorry, everything on the road was autonomous, and that kind of the freedom that you would have to then be able to do more with your day, but also not have to worry about driving. But I know a lot of people love the driving experience as well, which is a really big bit of conflict between electric cars and petrol heads and things like that. That's a whole other discussion. But yeah, I think autonomous vehicles is something that is coming, and if done right, we could embrace it, and it could be very beneficial, I think.
Amazing. Now, I know that Millie has got some questions from our audience watching online. Hello to the Extreme audience who have been watching from around the world, particularly our One Young World community. Millie, what's happening online? What are people asking us about? You can share. Yep, someone's bringing it. Thank you very much. Thank you, madam. Right, here we go.
Right, so first question we've got coming from Belgium. Elsie is asking, how can we ensure that the future of travel is accessible to all, given the cost of EVs?
That's such a good question. Ailish, do you want to kick us off on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, yes, costs of EVs are high at the moment, but I think when we start to get rid of the ICE cars, it's a bit of a balancing act, isn't it, really? It's that the ICEs need to start to dwindle a little bit, and I think companies need to be a bit more inventive with what they can do to make cars more affordable. I think also as well there is, talking about affordability, it's tricky, isn't it? Because you know, it's the lower socio-economic groups that are usually left behind in this kind of conversation, which is why, you know, we at Electroheads, we love to talk about all different kinds of modes of travel, where, you know, e-bikes, scooters, things like that, because there is a way that you can get around. We don't need cars to get around unless you really do have to be doing those long commuter journeys every day for your work, for example. Like there, again, like I said, you have to change that mindset. Yeah.
And on that, in terms of making sure the components are coming in cheaper and things like that, what's your view on how electric vehicles can be made cheaper and more accessible?
Well, Theovox is even the first batch production vehicles. Usually when you first go to batch production, usually your vehicle is far more expensive than if you're in mass production. But even the batch production vehicles will be half the price of a Toyota Prius. And we've done market research with Uber drivers, and 6 in 10 of them would be willing to buy a Theovox rather than drive their mini cab of choice. And it costs very little to run. If you have a vehicle this light, not only does it, if all vehicles were a similar weight, even if you have any impact in cities, it would cause very little damage to a pedestrian, to another vehicle, because they are all, if you have lots of lightweight vehicles together, it's safer for everyone. So we all need to lightweight all vehicles, is the first step. Second step is need to look at the problem differently, with different concepts mean that you can manufacture something completely different for a completely different price, that can do the same thing. You know, once so our roadmap is so the first vehicle will be EPA-C, so same class as e-bike, but then we will remove, actually the working prototype, the first one that I drove a year ago, it isn't EPA-C, it's pure electric vehicle that goes 40 miles an hour, the first one. We've actually made it into an EPA-C. So we will go back to it being a pure EV and a faster EV with doors and all the creature comforts of a car. And it will be much cheaper than a car, about half the price.
Thinking about problems in a different way, and I mean, you've obviously worked with lots of different companies. You know, there is this association that sustainable always means more expensive. That's increasingly uncoupling. What's your view in terms of how we can make sure that these things become more accessible and become more affordable?
I think there's lots of ways of kind of like changing the system a bit. So rather than having your own car, you can also subscribe and sort of like get a car, pick it up somewhere. You know, I forgot what you call these car schemes. Yeah, Zipcar. I don't know what you have in the UK. So I live in Amsterdam, and we have lots of different schemes all over the city.
And lots of bikes.
And lots of bikes, so exactly. So getting rid of the need to actually own your own car and only picking up one of these, you know, subscription things whenever you need it and you pay as you go sort of thing. I think those look really, really promising, and just like taking away the whole need to like have your own car.
I'm going to keep coming questions to the floor. Millie, who else online's asking us questions?
Yeah, you talking about like the transition over. We've got Claudia from Gibraltar asking, what kind of role can businesses be playing in the transport transition?
Quick answer on that, and then maybe we'll go to our audience who are here in person. Marion, do you want to kick off?
Can you repeat the question? I didn't quite hear it.
Yeah, of course, sorry. What kind of role can businesses be playing in the transport transition?
So not auto businesses, not transport businesses, but if you are a salmon business or a carpet business or whatever, what can you be doing to help speed up the transition?
All businesses. Okay, well, most businesses have a choice of company cars, for instance. What fleet are you using? Do you need a fleet is the question. What we need to do is reduce the number of cars in existence. We need to, for instance, there's some apps now where they do employee carpools, which are quite interesting. So we haven't talked about technology, you know, different systems of doing things that, you know, our smartphones allow now. It's not just about hardware. It's not just about the vehicles. It's about how we collaborate together. You know. My project's only been made possible by collaboration between 20 UK manufacturing partners. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been possible. A startup that, you know, I'm not Elon Musk. I don't have £1 billion from selling PayPal. You know, how do you have a startup if you're not a billionaire? It's about collaboration, and I think all companies need to start collaborating with their employees, with other companies to solve the problem.
Do you want to come in on that, Lisa? I mean, streaming is an industry where famously people are having to collaborate at new rates just to be able to get people the content they want.
Yeah, true. Although I was going to say that WaterBear has a huge network of NGO partners that we work with, and one of our partners is based here in the UK, and they're called Possible. And a great thing that they're promoting businesses to do is to give their staff time off to travel in a sustainable way when they go on vacation. So rather than counting that travel day as holiday, they count it as a work day. Like, you basically get paid to travel by train or by ferry instead of flying, and it's called Climate Perks. If you want to know more about that, you can look to our partner Possible and find out about Climate Perks.
That's
it's very
great
cool.
idea.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Ailish, what about you? What else can non-transport businesses do to help on this one?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I have to tell my company about that because I could get quite a lot of work
really
days
cool.
just travelling.
Yeah.
So a quick one, actually, a really good example is I know of an estate agents who have actually changed fleets, got rid of their company cars and actually got electric bikes instead, which is really cool because then they can fold up their electric bikes and then put them in the house, and just little things like that. Again, changing the mindset. You don't need a car. You can still, you know, electrify, and it can be affordable. You don't have to pay out, you know, thousands of pounds to get yourself like mobilised. There are other ways of doing it.
Can I just add one thing? The biggest problem is that we are transporting usually one person around in 2-ton vehicles. So if your company is doing that anywhere in your company, they need to think again.
Yeah, great point. Do we have any questions here from our audience? Millie, perhaps the lady at the back. Millie, do you want to bring the microphone to the back? Thank you. Oh, we have a helper. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry, gentleman at the back. So this is a good face mask. It's also, we shouldn't even be identifying by gender. Person at the back.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for the talks. I was curious, you mentioned at the beginning the 15-minute city concept, and I was kind of a little disappointed actually to not hear very much stress at all on active and public transport. I know you mentioned some people don't want to be traveling under their own power, but the idea that we should all be buying electric cars is, to me, kind of crazy. And I know there are different modes, micromobility and things, but to say the only solution is electrification when we need to be building cities that work for humans, I don't see that as the solution. I think we need to look at public, shared, active.
Yeah, that's such a great point, and we haven't delved into it as much as we should. But Ailish, I mean, I know you were talking about happy city design. Do you want to talk a bit about the role that public transport must play in that?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, the thing that I said about 15 minutes, like neighbourhoods and whatnot. I think in Paris they have 20 minutes. Basically, everything is accessible in 20 minutes, and I think that is what we need. We, in terms of, what's the
Public transport.
Public transport.
Public and active transport.
Public and active transport, exactly. So basically, again, we need to get out the cars. Public transport is a huge, it's already there already, and it's accessible, and it's cheap-ish, I guess. So we just need to put more onus on getting into public transport, because I actually was speaking to an electric bus company really recently, they've got a fleet in London and also further abroad. They've got the first electrified, what's it called, where buses live?
Bus station?
No, there's like a depot, thank you, yeah, depot, where they live. I was at a bus depot. It was the first electric bus depot in the UK. And it's really exciting because it's just like things like these are like coming to fruition, and the more people that actually get on electric buses, the more electric buses will actually appear as well. It's kind of, again, that circular thing. We need to kind of put more money into it to get more out of it. So, and yeah, trains. Everybody should be getting on trains. I got a train up here today. People don't need to fly. And
also, I just want to say a huge, acknowledge the fantastic public transport workers. I think we obviously think of our doctors and nurses, but the amount of the number of deaths amongst the public transport worker industry. They're people who are really underappreciated. I think we should, by valuing those staff more, will only improve public transport. But thank you for calling us out. I mean, we should have spent more time on it, but a very good point.
I should say that the Mayor of London's having a big push for active transport. It's why I've made Theovox electric pedal assist, so it is an e-bike. In the first to market, it has double pedals on both sides, both driver and passenger.
That is so cool.
Yeah. Do you have some more questions from our audience? Yes, the person here in the black jacket.
I'd like to ask about the Voxy. You didn't mention anything about the safety within the car, because you said it's really lightweight. So let's say someone wants to have big family with children and everything. So how would the safety would be? Because if you look at Tesla, and they have all this technology to prevent accidents and everything.
Sure. So
good question.
So the first Theovox is very. The first market is very specific. So 80% of rides in city are single occupancy. So that's the biggest problem. So that's what I'm looking at. So moving about one person around a city. So we're not looking at moving whole families. It's usually one person with luggage. So in the back of Theovox, in the boot, you can move the seat forward, you can tilt the seat, and you can get a whole massive suitcase in the back and 2 flight cases underneath the seats. So it has a lot of shopping cargo space.
And to reassure people, if you got into a ding with a big combustion engine car right now, how would the Theovox come out?
We are doing, at this next stage now, we are doing FEA, which is crash test analysis. So we will be able to show you that in a computer animation to show how it performs. But the structure is made of a flax hybrid material, and it's incredibly strong. It's a flax carbon material that we're using, and it's the first time it's been used in automotive. We went a little bit overboard in the prototype because we weren't sure how strong it would be, and it's incredibly strong. So it's looking very promising for crash testing, yeah.
Strong and lightweight. And we'll probably take another question from the, or maybe one, if I take one and then if you pass the person behind you, and we'll take them both at the same time. Yes, please.
Okay, so how can we ensure that electric vehicles don't reproduce the same kinds of inequalities as diesel and petrol vehicles? For example, the fact that electric vehicles still run on the roads and therefore take space away from pedestrians and cyclists.
Yeah, good point. Do you mind passing it to the person behind you, and then we'll sort of answer both together and wrap up?
Yeah. So actually, I wanted to add something that was James what he was saying. I'm from Amsterdam as well, and we believe that a 200-year-old technology is already in the shed. So it's the solution. I mean, and it's active mobility, and it's the bicycle. Yes. So basically, we want to talk a bit more about that and move away from the discussion where it's all about electrification and it's all about technology. That's the future. It's already here, and we can change our cities overnight at low cost. And if we maintain people that are active all the time, that's a solution for our cities, because then we ensure a high quality of life, I think, and create happy and healthy cities.
Yeah. Great, those are both such good points. We're just on our last couple of minutes, so I'm going to come down the row, and if you just make your closing remarks, and if you want to make some reference to those fantastic inventions we just had, that would be great. So, Lisa, I'll come to you first, just to wrap up our discussion for this evening.
Sure, I think we all need to make an effort to do whatever we can, whether that's making a great choice on the kind of vehicle you're about to buy, or not buying a vehicle at all and just getting a bicycle. Do what you can that suits your lifestyle, and also push your politicians for system change, because we're not going to get anywhere with just individual behaviour change. It has to be system change at the same time.
You're right. Eilish?
Yeah, absolutely, couldn't agree more. I mean, just say I'm a huge bike rider. I absolutely love it. I wouldn't really ever get in a car unless I'm sort of doing it for my job, for making a review. But yeah, I think there needs to be less cars in the cities. Like I've said, we need to prioritise walking, cycling, getting public transport. Like you say, that switch could change overnight if we just did it, and it doesn't cost anything. And then we wouldn't even have to retrofit our cities with cycle lanes, because there are no cars on the road. So it works hand in hand. And yes, let's all just put the pressure on the politicians. Like I was saying, electric scooters, they could be fantastic if we use them properly. If there's education, it can be a perfect solution for people with single occupancy car journeys. We need to make them legal. We're one of the only countries now that actually don't have electric scooters legal in our country, which I just think we're so behind in so many respects. So things need to change fast.
And I think if we just had like one free car-free day a month as a starter, that would just open people's minds. They could really reimagine it. Because right now you can't. It's hard to imagine unless you see it. But Marianne, do you want to finish us off?
And I couldn't agree with this lady more that we have the technology already. But you've got to understand that most people are addicted to their fossil fuel vehicles. So something like, say, Theovox, the idea of making it into an EPAC vehicle where you've got all the creature comforts of feeling like you're in a car is to wean people, to make more cyclists from car drivers. So a car driver goes through a city at 11.3 miles an hour on average. It's pretty slow. But if they go into the cycle lane, so in London, the Mayor of London's made some brilliant cycle superhighways. You can get through London incredibly quickly in the cycle lane. But most car drivers don't know that. But they are more willing to get in a Theovox wheel if they feel safer. It solves the problem of being not seen by lorry drivers, for instance. They feel more protected, and they are more protected. So it gets the people who are a bit nervous about being on a bicycle in the cycle lane and feeling, wow, this is great, I can go really fast. And it's about conversion. It's about changing behaviour and getting them in the cycle lane.
Changing behaviour. What a fantastic panel. So thank you so much, Lisa, Ailish, and Marianne. Absolutely fascinating. I've been Ella Robertson-McKay from One Young World. Thank you very much.